Hey, I'm Chris Bias, and this is my Module 1 discussion response. The first question is to identify several forces of change that affect jobs and organizational behavior. Um, these forces are number 1, emerging technology, number 2, career pathways, number 3, entrepreneurship, and number 4, global economic integration. Uh, for number 1, emerging technology, computers, advanced data science and artificial intelligence are beginning to impact every occupation within the context of the first world. The LinkedIn article mentions that even non technical roles are feeling the impact of automation, and we see these types of jobs now requiring technical, critical thinking, and digital fluency skills in a way that they've never required before. I can think of two immediate examples of people who work in jobs that were previously non technical in the past that became markedly impacted by the evolution and progression of computer technology. My wife's grandfather made a career out of being a machinist, and at the beginning of his career, he said it's very manual in nature in the way that the machines were calibrated and in which the way that the items were produced. Then his job through the years became one that demanded computer and other technical programming skills as the industry changed in favor of more streamlined and a more precise approach that computer technology facilitated. Basically, he went from being a very hands on blue collar worker to someone who programmed computers and machines. Another example is a car mechanic that I know who said that he's gone from a mechanic who is able to listen to and diagnose car issues by ear to somebody who he describes himself as merely a parts changer because now they're just going around the shop with laptop computers and they plug the computers into other computers and run diagnostics that way. Um, we've also seen a lot of positive changes with advanced technology in the medical field as the electronic medical record has allowed much greater access to patient data, which facilitates continuity of care and even improving patient safety with various checks and balances, such as computer identification of patient allergies or through the scanning of medication to confirm the right patient, right dose, right route, right time, and reduces medication administration errors and improves patient outcomes. The World Development Report from 2019 describes how the improvement of industrialization and its processes has both raised productivity but also fears that people will be out of work due to more efficient machine production processes. I think this is a valid argument, and many new skill sets have developed as a result of advancing industrialization. And I think that if people evolve and learn new skills as technology advances, then in new careers or the implementation of advanced skills into older occupations creates more advanced means of production and career viability rather than simply taking jobs away. And as I'll discuss a little bit later, a lot of these jobs aren't necessarily taken away, they're just transferred into different economies. So while the automation does eliminate some jobs from the Western world, advancing technology is creating a lot more new jobs that are available. And I think that emerging technology um, is a very positive thing. It also poses the risk of creating a greater discrepancy between those who have access to the technology and those who don't. And I think that this potentially creates the need for certain social safety networks to prevent a certain sect of society, such as those who don't have the internet and therefore can't search jobs and can't apply for jobs that are only available online. We need to prevent these people from being completely dropped out and left behind as technology goes forward. Number two, career pathways. There are a lot of jobs and careers that are available today as the result of advancing technology that used to not be available. And by the same token, there's also a lot of jobs that used to be viable career options that are rapidly becoming obsolete due to the advancements of technology. Um, for an example, software engineer and cybersecurity specialist, those weren't jobs that were available 50 years ago. And we're also seeing more jobs having the capability of being performed in decentralized locations, um, such as where many people used to go in and still do go into an office building downtown to perform their jobs physically at a location that their employer owns. Now they're able to perform a lot of jobs remotely at home or in other locations. And I think that with the recent COVID-19 pandemic, the necessity of social distancing, this has allowed us to see that many jobs that were being performed on company property are actually being capable of performance by people not leaving their house. And I think that this is potentially creating an evolution of how and where many people will work in the future. I think that we'll see a lot more people working from home or in remote locations than necessarily having to live in a certain place so that they can go to their company's property in a certain building or location. And I think this potentially saves corporations billions of dollars in real estate investments and utilities to operate those real estate investments. And I think that a lot of careers that didn't require a lot in the way of technical or critical thinking skills will now require such skills in order to be successful and progressive in those occupations. And I think along with these changes in career pathways, we're also witnessing a shift from long-term careers with a singular company to a gig economy where companies hire independent workers for short-term commitments. Number three, entrepreneurship. I think the organizational behavior that encourages the entrepreneur spirit enhances an environment of learning, creativity, and influence in many ways. When organizational behavior encourages these attributes and activities, the people within the organization are able to collectively create and produce what consumers need and want and remain competitive within the global marketplace. When entrepreneurship is greatly enabled and enhanced by the global connectedness available through the internet, it's also met with new challenges that require new thought processes, actions, and service options that were not once available. We've seen how the evolution of online shopping has gone from a lot of small companies offering this service early on to global giants like Amazon dominating the marketplace, and other companies like Target and large grocery store chains offering online shopping with same-day delivery, which are basically attempts to remain competitive with the online mail order services. I think the wake of COVID-19 pandemic, we've also seen an uptick in the evolution and distribution of more remote services with a lot of retail stores offering same-day delivery and restaurants offering delivery through companies like DoorDash. So I think that the entrepreneurial spirit creates millions of jobs, and fostering that spirit within organizational behavior serves to enhance company success. And then global economic integration has been massively impacted by the advent of the internet and other technologies. Even on a small personal scale, I worked in the music business in my early 20s, writing for a webzine, and I did some business with people everywhere from Scandinavia to Brazil and Mexico, and it was only through technology and the internet through which those dollars were exchanged, and within a global economy in a way that was never possible for a guy like me before without an internet connection. And that's just a very small and insignificant way of explaining how possible global economic integration has become with the advent of the internet. Because when you take that very same concept and apply it to a company that exploded on a global scale, and like to someone like Amazon, we can see that global economic integration is both necessary and a possible in a way that was never available before. And this creates greater economic progress and innovation where we're able to benefit from the knowledge and experience of other people with whom we've never had the opportunity to do so in the past. It allows for greater trade opportunities, more value, and the addition of more new talent, allowing for the greater economic competitiveness and growth. I think that global economic integration also involves the transition of lower skilled industrial jobs that were once the heart and soul of countries like America. They're being transferred and transitioned into countries that have not previously had these industries, and this increases the total global workforce as a result. And corporations in this way are able to save dollars in both taxes and payroll in less developed countries. So while sometimes we view these in America as job losses, the global market is actually expanding as a result of this. One of the other questions was, how do you see these or other forces of change, such as pandemics, affecting your workplace, people's behaviors, and jobs? I think that some of the biggest changes we're witnessing now and within the last couple of years, we've begun to witness a massive shift in socially acceptable behavior and in what's tolerated and what's not tolerated. I think that we're going to look back in these times and in the future and see our present situation as a major turning point in the history of the essential elimination of racism and the unfair treatment of those who are not represented by the traditional majority. While these are turbulent and uncertain times, I think that the end result will be a more peaceful, loving, accepting, merciful, and forgiving society than we've had previously. I think that these large scale social changes will inevitably be reflected within the people's behavior within a workplace as well. I think that where there were essential caste systems that once existed within large corporate structures, I think that a more inclusive teamwork environment will prevail in the future. Um, I think that we're going to be required to hold ourselves to a higher moral standard than in the past, as people will be accountable for their words and actions both on and off the clock. We can see this in how some people have lost jobs over postings made on social media. Um, and I think that it doesn't matter uh, what someone's job title or influence or power is. I think that no one will be exempt from maintaining that high standard of moral integrity, with socio-behavioral skills becoming more important in emerging and future economies. I also think that as a result of COVID-19, our future will be marked with a much greater germ consciousness than once before. Uh, I don't know if the mask wearing will continue to be the social norm with asymptomatic individuals in a distant future. I think that the general consciousness and hygiene in regards to public cleansing and the availability of hand sanitizers and the understanding of infection prevention will remain at the forefront of the public consciousness and practice. I also think that within the healthcare industry, we'll see more standard use of personal protective equipment, such as gowns and masks and protective eyewear in situations where they weren't necessarily in regular use prior to COVID-19. I think that we'll see more mandatory vaccinations or mandatory N95 mask wearing as an alternative to being vaccinated during peak infection seasons. I've seen how advancing technology, specifically with computers and the electronic medical records within the healthcare industry, have been initially met with skepticism and disdain, but then goes on to make our jobs actually easier, with access to records for the purposes of care continuity being far-reaching. It's much better to have access to that information readily available. I think that healthcare workers on all levels today have to be much more tech literate than in the past, and in many ways, tech illiteracy would make job performance within this industry an impossibility. Um, the other question was, what types of large-scale workplace changes do you see in the future? I think that we'll continue to see advanced thinking and problem-solving skills, along with reasoning, self-efficacy, and socio-behavioral skills like teamwork continue to rise and take priority as the primary skills necessary to succeed in the emerging and future global markets. As I touched on previously, I think that we'll see millions of people working from home and remote locations in decentralized environments that once required their physical presence on company property for 40 hours a week. I think this will also allow for a more flexible scheduling and a greater work-life balance that's been unprecedented in generations past. I think that we are likely on the cusp of much greater job equality with far less toxic work environments where people of all races, ages, nationalities, and personal preferences experience much greater job and career satisfaction, along with promotional capabilities that are based upon that individual's uh, specific qualifications and abilities to perform the job well, rather than any other circumstances that are not professionally related. I think that we're going to see a shift in workforce demographics with more racial and ethnical diversity, along with more women taking leadership roles. And at least that's what I think could be the end result of our current social environment, and that's what I'm hopeful for. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to hearing your responses.